outside and even inside. Power structure in the society does not also exist. There is no representation of community members in any local level, even panchayats, legislative or parliament level. Healthcare system also, there is no traditional healing method practiced by communities inside as well as outside. And allopathy is the most preferred medicinal method. And traditional knowledge structure is also, there is no use of traditional knowledge for any economical purposes. And activity pattern and leisure time is also observed same in both relocated and to be relocated sites. Identity and perception is also seen that however people have observed outside that now they have become farmers as compared to livestock herders when they were inside. However, relationship with nature, there was no existence of relationship with the nature in the people outside as well as outside. Inside as well as outside. Moving on to the conclusion. So relocation has been beneficial for the relocated communities. It has helped in communities' resilience by improved educational accessibility, the decrease in natural resource dependency, increase in adaptive livelihood options, development of basic infrastructural facilities, and enhanced material assets. However, social efficacy have been reduced in the relocated sites. Moving on, the communities do not have any power structure, and they are very similar in their traditional healing method, their knowledge structure, their activity pattern, their relationship with nature is also very same. And also, from the first objective, we can infer that involvement of local community is still foreseen from the organizational lens in Sariska, and issues are still resulting with the relocation. So the way forward is that opinions of stakeholders, community in relocation package needs more consideration. Balance between ecological and social consideration during relocation needs to be maintained. A participatory approach between communities and forest department needs broader understanding of institutional procedures, policies and development practices. More in-depth comparative studies on relocation will reduce the gap between theoretical and practical implementation of the relocation. I want to acknowledge these people who have given their invaluable inputs throughout my presentation journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abhishek. We will now open up for questions.
Well done, Abhishek. It's a very interesting topic. We have done well. A lot of very good information have come out based on your presentation. And a few general clarification I would like to have. The first one is that regarding your first objective, perception of forest department. So, who are the people involved during the interview? What level of forest officers involved for collecting the data?
Abhishek, I'll just repeat the question because the guests on the Zoom, they want the question to be repeated.
Okay.
So, sir is asking, who were the forest department officials involved in
during the interview process?
During the interview
For the
process.
first objective.
Yes.
For the first objective.
So sir, I interviewed DFO as well as Range Forest Officer and also Forest Guards working in the
And next one is that inside the forest, obviously the cattle number is higher. So based on your result, I come to know that when it is relocated, the number of cattle has been decreased, but the expenses have been increased. So I assume that inside the forest, the people generally use the native cattle variety. When they are relocated, they generally use hybrid or just say the related cattle. Is that type of things have you observed?
No sir, actually the same type of livestock species are used even outside, but inside the natural resources are freely available as compared to outside, because outside you have to buy everything, even fodder and all the expenses are done outside. Inside you have free availability of resources, that's why there are no expenses. But the species are same, there is no hybrid livestock.
Okay, Abhishek. And another thing is that while relocation, they are getting the package of about 2.5 lakh rupees in cash. So it was there 10 years before. Are you giving any recommendation that it has to be increased, or if it is increased, how much it can?
No sir, on my just one study area I cannot give recommendation on the whole relocation package because it has to be, the study has to be done on a large plane if you want to give recommendation regarding relocation package.
And inside the people who are living, I could not get the understanding of how much people are the tribal peoples and how much other people.
So sir, as I inferred from the results that the occupations are practiced even inside and outside are same. So there is no concept of tribal communities in the area. So they are already exposed to the resource, the kind of occupations which are practiced in the area. So that is why even when they come out, they have practiced. They have started getting more new livelihood options because they were already exposed to those earlier livelihood options available.
One last question. During the methodology part or result part, you have mentioned that there is no adaptation of traditional healing method, but in conclusion you have given the people have highly adapted for the traditional methods. Bit
No,
more
sir.
elaborate.
No sir, I have said that there is no traditional healing method practiced even outside and even inside the India. So there is no ethno-medicinal plants or they have any knowledge about. So there is no practice here inside India.
That's all. So very good.
Thank you.
May I come in there?
Yes, sir. Dr. Bharucha has a question, Abhishek, for you. Yes, sir.
Just two small things. One is, there are some of the villages which have been translocated so much earlier, relocated so much earlier. Is there a change in their various cultural things, their food habits, their agricultural patterns? You mentioned about livestock, of course, that it's the same and so on. But did you notice any sense of change coming about in their cultural view, which in the older versus the newer ones? That was one thing. And the other thing is very interesting. Do you feel that the older, earlier ones who were brought into these villages have been able to integrate, let us say, into the local panchayat system? Or are they still considered outsiders? What is your sense of that?
So answer to your first question, sir, the relocated sites were, the Roon Mojpur were relocated in 2008 and Bardot Roon was relocated around 2010 and 11. So there is not much significant difference in the gap of relocation, only 2 to 3 years. So there was no any cultural significant difference I observed in both the sites. But answering to your second question, the agricultural practices on that are very different because the land quality in Bardot Roon is a bit better as compared to the land quality in Roon Mojpur. So according to the land quality, they are cultivating their crops. And about the second question, as you were asking about the political or any connections with the Gram Panchayat. So till now, there is no representation of any community member or any relocated villager to the local panchayat where they are relocated. I did not observe any kind of representation.
Because that would make a major impact and a major change. So are there some tools that one could use to make that happen?
Yes, sir. If they get a representation in the local panchayat where they are relocated, they will have a say about their about their needs and about the difficulties they are facing in the relocated villages.
Yes,
So as I observed that in Bardot Roon, where the village was actually wanting road facilities which was not provided to them when they were relocated. So that is some issues like they are facing when they are relocated. So if they get a bit of representation in the panchayat level or anywhere, they can have access to those resources.
I think you've done a good job, which is quite insightful. Thanks.
Anju, I have a question. More of a, I think, very interesting what you found, I think would benefit the audience as well, was to talk about how these are not traditional tribal societies that we generally think of in terms of relocation and resilience, which we thought would be the question as such when we started out this study, was to look at what would make the communities more resilient, what kind of adaptive measures could be part of an administrative process that could help them relocate. But it would be nice if you could talk about how these are not traditional tribal societies which have integrated with, which have a very strong connection with nature as such, or the place that they live in. They are as urbanized as we are in terms of, even though they're living inside. If you could talk a little bit about that, I think it gives a more sense of why you find the results that you're finding.
Okay, ma'am. So as I showed in the results, that the occupations are very similar to the people who are living in that area. So the landscape, the people who are inside Saristra are not actually the tribal community, and they are not earning from any tribal occupation. For example, they are not doing they are not using any traditional knowledge structure for economic purposes, as well as they are not having any attachment with the any logical attachment with the nature, and so they are very simple, very similar to the people who are still outside, and their occupations, their practices, and their livelihood, their way of lifestyle is also very similar in the land to the people who are still outside. So they are not the tribal communities as we see in central India, in northeast India, in western Ghats, or in other parts of India.
Hello. Yeah. Is that Dr. Ambika? You want to ask a question? Dr. Ambika, it's very difficult to hear you. Could you be a little louder, please?
Okay. No, I think the discussion about the previous comment about
Dr. Ambika, we are still unable to hear you. I'm really sorry. Maybe could you just come near to the speaker?
No, I think I'm able to speak a little. So it's okay. Maybe I can one point which I'm maybe
Madam, could you type your question, please?
Madam, it just has to be a little louder, it's okay.
Not be on Zoom can hear you, but because we are in an auditorium,
Yes, they can't hear in the auditorium.
if you can type your comment in the chat, that means a good way for us to answer. We should then after that.
Suppose official the speaker volume is turned up high enough, right?
That's much better now.
Also, for discussion, I was asking official if the speaker volume is also on.
No, we are not streaming from Abhishek's computer, so that will not work.
Okay, then from yours, wherever the audio and the audience.
Yeah, it's full. Dr. Ambika, should we wait for your question? Are you typing?
No, I think we should carry on because it's a deeper question. I will wait
All right, thank you. Thanks, Abhishek.
Thank you, ma'am.
So now we will move to the last presentation of this session, which is by Mr. Abhishek. Abhishek is going to present his dissertation on storied landscapes, a study of the ecological narratives of the Bhutias, Tolchas, Marchas and Jats of Uttarakhand. I'm sorry, I said Abhishek, but actually it is Devashish Saurabh. Actually Abhishek presented for a long time, so maybe really sorry about that. Devashish is going to present his work on storied landscapes, a study of the ecological narratives of the Bhutias, Tolchas, Marchas and Jats of Uttarakhand.
Good morning everyone. I'm Devashish. I'm going to present my dissertation topic titled Storied Landscape, a study of ecological narratives of Bhutias that comprises of Tolchas, Marchas and Jats of Uttarakhand. So basically, before moving any further to my topic, I would like to introduce the background which helped me frame my topic. The purpose of gathering knowledge is basically dependent for two purposes: survival and development. Development and survival are two instincts of human that helps us frame our society and develop our ontological setup. Under survival, we basically depend upon our instincts and also because of philosophical reason that includes nature and resource orientedness. In instinct, we react to the physical threats and also understand observe the natural happenings that occur around us. Under humanization of nature, we do it obviously for our survival, which may cause massive destruction and also helps us in evolution. Under the transformation ontological setup, basically it happens because of two primary reasons: ecological changes and social changes. Ecological changes are broadly brought about because of land use changes, changes in the forest cover and changing resource extraction techniques. This is the background of my study, as basically gathering information is not solely for the purpose to understand environment, but it is also for the sole purpose of survival and instincts that arise out of it. The rationale of my study is divided into three parts: inference, geography and framework, under which nature culture linkages, global science and regional indigenous knowledge interface, and the indigenous lifestyle and continuous ongoing infrastructural development help me in framing the objectives of my study. Geographically, the study area is a very sensitive area in present times. It's a borderland, it's a Himalayan ecosystem, and also a complex landscape because of ongoing changes, and we have seen recently with the ongoing landslides and earthquakes that are coming up. Under framework, it comprises and includes national and international frameworks like Social Justice Ministry and Empowerment Ministry is working with the tribal people to conserve their indigenous knowledge system and understand their perception. Forest Right Acts, which hampers their access to the forest and also controls it, restricts it, and offers them certain incentives as well. SC/ST welfare schemes. Under international framework, we have Convention of Biological Diversity, Convention for Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage, UN Center on Traditional Knowledge, the World Intellectual Property Organization, and Permanent Forum on International Study. So basically all these helps us in giving reason to my study, because these are all very interconnected topics which will be reflected in my study. Before moving any further, I would like to describe who are the people whom I study. They are Bhutias. They are called Bhotias because of their traditional name, which is the native name of Tibet, that is Bhot. Bhot means the Tibet land or the lowland. It culminated into India through a very different or Indian version called Bhot, and later on it transformed into Bhotia. They are border tribes between India and Tibet. Currently, Bhotias inhabit Sikkim, Uttarakhand, West Bengal. The total population as per the census of 2011 is 39,106, out of which 37,873 are Hindus. In the Uttarakhand state, Bhotias are having the highest literacy rate of 79.9%, and they have the highest migration rate, and around 25.8% are living in urban areas in Uttarakhand. My study area comprises of 3 villages, Dunda, Dhingran and Chinka, which lies in Dunda lies in the Uttarkashi district and comprises of Jat Bhutias, whereas Dhingran and Chinka lies in Chamoli district comprising of Marchas and Tolchas respectively. This is the research design of my study. Basically, the objectives are finalized, after which theoretical background and methodology was conducted. Under the methodology section, multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary approaches followed, fieldwork methods have been formulated, and data analysis was done after that. But following the multidisciplinary approach, sample questionnaire was developed. Fieldwork method includes quantitative and qualitative method, Recce survey, and stratified random sampling and opportunistic sampling. Methodological triangulation as put forward by Brian 2004 has been put up, under which transect, group discussion, participant observation and interviews were conducted. Basically, focus group discussion, informal discussion, informal and formal interviews, semi-structured interviews, and observation during ceremonies while worshipping and daily routine was observed. For the data analysis, inductive, deductive and coding technique is done to understand the qualitative data, whereas Excel, Bristol-Wallis and chi-square test is done to understand the quantitative data. The first objective of my study is to understand how Tolchas, Marchas and Jats Bhotias conceptualize nature. It is divided into 2 parts. First part is folklores. What are the different types of folklores? Are the questions that I am asking. What are the ecological elements mentioned in the folklores? How do Tolchas, Marchas and Jats perceive nature? The second part of my first objective is traditional knowledge, under which I am asking, do scientists in forest department recognize traditional knowledge for management of resources? What is the relevance of traditional knowledge within the present community? The sample size of my entire study is I conducted 150 interviews, 8 group discussion, and an attempt was made to have representation of each gender and age group depending upon the opportunities that is available to me. This graph shows the interview elements, and you can see that around 32 females from Jat Bhutia community and 13 from Tolchas were conducted. What are the different types of folklore? So these are the various types of folklores that I found from my study. It starts from leisure and ends at migration, but they are overlapping categories and each are not unique to each other. They overlap, but according to themes, I have distinguished them, out of which leisure is the highest in number. It's around 15 folklores, and altogether I got around 69 folklores, which includes proverbs as well. Chi-square test is done, and it is found that there is a significant association in different age groups and in the quantity of known folklores. Variability and variety in the types of folklores are observed. It encapsulates the socio-economic aspects of migration to ecological philosophies. Second question, what are the ecological elements in my folklores? And these are the various ecological elements that I found in my folklores, from mountains till grasslands, rain to trade routes and passes, wildlife, which includes mammals and other species except birds and trees. Birds and trees were separately categorized because they were high in numbers. Snow, earth, streams, rivers, fires were also found, are the different ecological elements that are found in their folklores. Living in hills have framed and structured the ontological setup of Bhotias. Their imagination and realities revolves around the natural elements that are predominant in their habitation areas. Third question, how do Bhotias perceive nature? And I divided it into 2 parts, sacred flora and sacred fauna, and out of which I found tulsi, people, devdar, oak. These are the various kinds of tree species that are sacred in their area. And one interesting fact that you can observe from this graph is that most of the species that are not found in higher altitudes. but they are still sacred to them. This may have been possible or potentially possible because of the continuous migration, semi-migration, seasonal migration that bhutias do. Also, they belongs to traded communities which are quite smart. They keep on moving from one place to another, understanding different ecological system, developing and surviving in them. Thus, most of the species are either not found in higher altitudes, or at least now they don't connect it with the higher altitude. Most of them are belonging to shivalik and terai regions, but they have continuous interaction with them. Importance of ficus species, fruit and timber providing species, medicinal plant reflects the ecological and resource driven understanding of the bhutias. For understanding the sacred faunas, I have categorized it in the sacred, profane, threat and consumption. One interesting thing is that most of them said that they only consume snow trout. Threat are elephant, snakes and bears. Elephant mostly in the Shivaliks and Terai region. They consider cats, owls, jackals and crows as profane, and an influence can be seen from the plain areas. For them, snow leopard or safed bagh is considered as sacred. Himalayan monar, yaks, ibex and tiger. Again, we see the tiger, they are mostly